It's Tuesday. It's time for some Gridiron Across the U.S. Are we back? I'm thinking we're so back.
I think we might be back. But one thing that wasn't back was our locks and dogs of the week. Last week we went great. We went 3-1. This week, flip the script 1-3. The one, my pick, the lock against for the Packers to beat the Seahawks. And what did the Packers do? They went into Lumen Field with the 12th man. The 12th man in 2024 is almost as washed as Deebo Samuel, and the Packers got the win. So that was how my lock did. How did your lock do, Mr. Confident?
So we've been talking highly about the Panthers the last couple weeks. I'm thinking that's over.
We're done.
I see a team that's been playing their best football recently, and they're playing the lowly Cowboys who I picked against last week. And I was feeling myself after I went 2 for 2 last week and didn't work out this week. I got my lock wrong and my underdog wrong. I was feeling myself until last week. I promise that I will lock in and not get any locks wrong. Um, yeah, I really thought the Panthers would go out there and win, considering they were hanging with some of the best teams in the league, but they didn't. And I also got my underdog wrong because I picked against the Chiefs. I promise I'll never do that again unless Mahomes is out and Carson Wentz is in. Then might have to go against
Might
them.
have to.
But it was a little rough last week, but I won both my fantasy matchups, so I don't really care.
So my underdog, it did not also hit. I picked the Dolphins to beat the Texans, and Tua, the CTE, just came in a little bit late. He was playing great, and then comes out those three interceptions. So yeah, we weren't too good on our picks this week, but we promise we'll be back next week, hopefully, and maybe I don't know. Maybe Tua will play better, but I don't think I'm going to pick for the Dolphins ever again now that their season's over.
Well, I'm looking at it. I don't know. I guess the Cowboys won, but I don't think any other underdogs won.
No,
So to be in our defense, or I technically the Bills were not favored. And the Bucks actually weren't favored. That's shocking. So I guess the Bills and the Bucks count. But they weren't really underdogs. So, but interesting week. Can't win them all. On to the next week.
we'll be back next week. 4 for 4. Book it right now. Ready to get into our games from this week?
Yeah.
Started off with your team, the Steelers, going into Philadelphia. How do you feel about that one, bud?
So, it didn't really matter. Um, I don't think so. Um, when we're looking at the Steelers, the only game left on the schedule that really matters is at Baltimore on Saturday for the division. You got Ravens jersey on there, but
It's Joe
I
Flacco, buddy.
I'm not Joe Flacco, but I think when you look at the Steelers, they had the philosophy going in this game. They knew that it didn't really matter, and they played like it as well. Keeping Pickens out was questionable, even though he probably could have played. They're playing the long-term game there, and our offense is just anemic without Pickens. I mean, I think Van Jefferson like led the team in targets or something.
Wow.
So
Great receiver right there.
yeah. But I mean, I don't know why Arthur Smith decides to run crack toss into the Great Wall of China 10 times a game. And that's ultimately what cost us the game because Najee fumbled when we were in the red zone. We were down 20-13. If we had scored there, it would have been 20-20 all tied up. Instead, the Eagles go all the way down the field, score. It's now 27-13. And then Tomlin punts from Eagles territory with 10 minutes left, and the Steelers never see the ball again. So Eagles was just a clock management masterclass, you can say. Another Tomlin clock management disaster class, like always. And I still think the Steelers will be contenders this year. This isn't, wasn't the best showing. TJ Watt looks to be healthy. They're saying he just rolled his ankle late in the game there. So I think Steelers will be okay. And the Eagles figured out their little passing game drama that they had.
Yep. I didn't see that game, so I'm not sure about too much of that. But the game I did see was Bills versus Lions. That was one of the best games of the season, I think. Coming off of another one of the best games of the season for the Bills, they have now scored 90 points in their last two games. But we shouldn't ignore the fact that they have let up 84 points in their last two games also. So Josh Allen's putting on a masterclass. He's been putting up insane numbers. 6 touchdowns last week, 4 this week, 10 touchdowns in a 2 week span. I think he's pretty much locked up the MVP, but other contenders for it, they're not gonna win. But Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff and Saquon, they're all still looking great. Goff had an insane game in that too. He had 500 yards and 5 touchdowns. Like the Detroit offense was really functioning, but it's just keeping up with that Buffalo offense. It's hard. So this was just a good old fashioned shootout. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, I don't know how to feel about Buffalo, honestly, at this point because they lost to the Rams this last week. They put up 48, but as we know, this is a beat up Lions defense. I think they have like 8 guys out for the year on defense or something. It's crazy. Like Aiden Hutchinson, Alex Anzalone, Derek Barnes, Carlton Davis, they're all out for the year. So this obviously isn't the Lions defense that we saw in the beginning of the season. And the Bills are putting up these crazy numbers against these lowly defenses, but I know the Lions and Rams both have good offenses respectively, but you can't give up 86 points in 2 games. It's just not a, formula for success. So I think the Bills will be fun to watch. I do still think they're AFC contenders. I have them over the Steelers and with the Chiefs, but it'll be interesting come playoff time if they're able to put up that production against better defenses like the Chiefs and the Steelers and the Ravens.
Yeah, we saw earlier.
And even the Broncos and the Chargers, they both have really good defenses as well.
Yeah, they gotta get a favorable matchup in the playoffs, I think. But if that offense can produce, they can win any game they set their mind to. And we're gonna move on to our next game, which was the Jets and the Jags. Now, this game, it was the tank bowl basically. Jags coming in with 2 wins, Jets coming in with I think 4 or 3. I think they were at 3, have 4 now. But they're kind of cooking their own. They're cooking themselves. They're lowering their draft stock by winning these games. But this was not a game they should have won. But we saw Devontae Adams nearly have 200 yards in that second half alone. That Rodgers connection, it's showing. But they're already eliminated. It's not enough. So I'm not sure why they're really trying now when they're screwing themselves out of a good draft pick. And earlier today, Drew Aller, who we mocked to go to the Jets, he decided to stay at Penn State for his senior year. So I think the Jets are kind of digging themselves in their own hole. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know what their post Rodgers plan is here exactly. A team's never going to play to lose, obviously, but this is not a year like past years. Like the Jets are now sitting at 4-10, and they're all the way down at the eight pick. There's a lot of bad teams this year. And they were really in contention for that first pick until this week. But we saw Devontae Adams 0 catches in the first half and then just exploded in the second half. I think it was 9 catches for 190 something and 2 touchdowns. Just a monster game from Adams. He's finally getting that connection with Rodgers that they hoped when they brought him over from the Raiders, but it all looks to be a little too late. And it's really interesting what happened to the Jets defense this year. They have so much talent in Sauce Gardner, Quincy Williams, DJ Reed, and they've just been terrible this year. I mean, you're giving up like what? You're giving up 25 points to the Mac Jones led Jaguars. This even the Steelers put up 37 on them in Russell Wilson's first game. So Jets obviously they come in with high expectations every year, but once again they continue to struggle.
They never meet them. And we want to get into our last game here.
Yeah.
You got it.
Well, I got it. All right. So we got the Commanders and the Saints, your team, obviously. It was a pretty good game. I mean, I wasn't paying too much attention to it, but
I don't
it came
blame.
down to the wire there at the end. Alvin Kamara did get hurt just to pile on to the Saints' injuries. I don't know if he's actually out. Um, Jake Haener mocking everyone on the field as he did his little photo shoot. And yeah, what do you think?
So I watched a little bit of this game, but start of the game, Jake Hayner's in, and I don't know who made that decision to start Jake Hayner in an NFL game, but it did not go too well. He was, I think, 4 for 10, 49 yards, and 1 interception. Then they finally pulled the plug and threw in Spencer Rattler, and then they started to form a little comeback there. We saw Cedric Wilson throw a touchdown pass to Alvin Kamara. What a beautiful catch in the corner of the end zone. Cedric Wilson used to play quarterback. I remember a couple years ago on the Cowboys, we used to see those Cedric Wilson trick plays a lot, and now that's in New Orleans, but they made it a close game. They could have won there if they got that 2 point conversion, but I think they I think they did that on purpose by missing that to because there's no hope at making the playoffs. I mean, technically they can, but what's the point of it? So I think they're trying to get themselves in better position for the future because with the firing of Dennis Allen earlier this year and all the injuries that have piled up, there's no chance and no hope to make a late playoff push because then you're just going to boost yourself to the number 12 pick or number 15 or whatever when they're currently sitting at, I believe, number 10 or yeah, they're sitting at number 10 right now. So I feel like they just have to keep losing these games. I think the tank is on these next couple of weeks for the Saints. They go to Lambeau this Monday for the Christmas Eve game, and I see a loss there, and then not sure who's after that. Don't really remember. Then they got Tampa the next week, so three losses here to end the season for the Saints will put them in prime position for the draft. I think.
Yeah, I think the Saints are definitely looking towards the future after just terrible injury luck, just like the Detroit Lions.
All right, now,
So,
all right, you got it.
or yeah, yeah, we'll move on to our Heisman, our other topics, and the main one that came out is the Heisman announced, and it was not the right pick in my opinion. I think Ashton Genty was the deserving pick, and Travis Hunter won because his coach is Deion Sanders.
I pretty much agree with that. We saw historic numbers from Genty. We haven't seen that in a while. Like we mentioned this last, I think, Tuesday podcast, but where we discussed why it should be Genty. So we're not going to get into too much detail about that. But I do think he was robbed, and God forbid Ashton Genty and Travis Hunter go one on one in the NFL because Hunter's going flying at least 10 yards there with all that anger built up because you could see it on his face there. He knew he was snubbed. And what I'm wondering is when are we going to see a non-power five team player win the Heisman? Because this was the best shot in years. When is a group of five player going to win it? And we also saw more group of five disrespect when they gave the Fred Blinkentoff to Travis Hunter over Nick Nash. And Nick Nash, as many of you know, he had a triple crown. I don't care if he was in the Mountain West, that's still a triple crown. But, Deion Sanders got to bring all the attention to Colorado. And rightfully so. I don't think Hunter deserved the Walter Camp Award, definitely most versatile player, but he also won best defensive player and best wide receiver. I don't think he deserved those. There were a lot of better players than him. No disrespect to him, of course. He's a phenomenal player, but I feel like there were better players in college football that were worthy of those awards.
Yeah. I think Travis Hunter is an incredible player, but if you look at Boise State and Colorado, if Colorado were to lose Travis Hunter, I think they still contend in the Big 12. I think they still go over 500. If Boise State loses Ashton Genty, I don't see them winning three games. And if the Heisman is going to be the best player or the most valuable player in college football, it has to go to Ashton Genty, quite frankly. But Travis Hunter is an amazing player, and I think he will be a good NFL player. But I'm still a little salty that Genty got snubbed. And onto our final topic
I
here.
got one
Nothing
more
after
after this.
this.
I got one more
No,
after.
no, no. I don't think we do.
I got my
Um,
mock draft.
oh, that's right, that's right. Okay, so that and then nothing after that.
All right.
We've got the Vancouver Canucks. So big news from Elliot Friedman this morning. He I don't know if he had any basis for this. So he said that the Canucks and the Sabres have been talking about Elias Pettersson earlier in the season when he was struggling, and he threw out the idea of a Cousins and Byram trade for Pettersson, and Vancouver is freaking out right now because the market takes everything way too seriously. I don't think there was any basis for this trade. He was just spitballing ideas. But as a Canucks fan, I think if we trade Pettersson to Buffalo, I think the return needs to start with Tage Thompson plus. It cannot be a guy who's one hit away from his career being over in Byram with his concussion problems and Cousins who has just struggled to put up numbers. I know Pettersson was struggling in the beginning of the year, but he's really found his groove. Will that continue with JT Miller? We don't know because there's obviously a little bit of drama between those two, but I don't see Pettersson getting traded. You don't sign a guy to an 8-year, 11.6 mil contract and then trade him right before his no trade clause kicks in, who's also represented by the same agent as Quinn Hughes. If you trade Pettersson right now before that no trade clause kicks in, you might as well say goodbye to Quinn Hughes. And I don't think the Canucks are willing to get rid of a once in a generation player of Quinn Hughes. So
Yep.
yeah,
I
that's all I have about the Canucks.
I don't know too much about what you're saying, but all I gotta say is go Canucks go. And we're gonna end it off with my mock draft. I posted my first mock draft today on our Instagram, Gridiron Across the U.S. _podcast. Go follow if you haven't. And I'm just gonna highlight a couple picks here, the ones that I wanted to get. Start off with our top five. I had number one overall. Giants are getting Cam Ward. I think that's their guy. Number two, Shedeur Sanders to the Raiders. And then I had a trade. I had the Panthers, a little bit of Panthers glaze coming right now, jumping up from 5 to 3 to get Travis Hunter. I feel like they want to build around Bryce Young and getting him a versatile playmaker like that who also can help out on your defensive side. Like he's a phenomenal player, and I feel like he just helps out on both sides of the ball for them. And then at four, main pick I want to highlight is Will Johnson going to the Jaguars. We saw yesterday that the Jag secondary is burnt toast. We saw that Devontae Adams stat line only in the second half, almost 200 yards allowed. They let 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers completely fry them. So they need some help back there. And I think Will Johnson's the guy. He's the consensus number one in this draft class. And he's gonna help that Jags defense out a lot that needs the help this year. And at five, I got the Patriots getting Teroria McMillan. I'm not sure really how to say his first name. But moving on to the next set of picks, we'll have them up here as well on YouTube. Pick I want to highlight. Kevin highlighted this last week, but I'm going to highlight it again. Ashton Genty to the Cowboys. Cowboys moved up a few spots, but that's not going to change anything. Not many teams are in need of a running back to say other than the Cowboys. So we're going to move on past that one pretty quickly. And then in the next round, I have at 23, the Broncos are going to get Tyler Warren from Penn State, I feel like. Broncos offense has been a mess this season, and it starts with the receiving group. They have not many wide receivers, but the top tight ends in this class, I feel like they're both first round talent, Colson Loveland and Warren, as I just mentioned. But the receiver depth it goes throughout the draft. So I feel like getting the Mackey Award winner just announced from this year, I feel like that's going to really help and give Bo Nix a versatile weapon. Warren also played 8 different positions this year at Penn State, so you can still move him around all around the field. And then the last pick I want to highlight is pick 32. I have the Marshall product, Mike Green, going to the Chiefs. He's an underlooked player, but he had an insane year for Marshall. I think he had 17 sacks or something like that. And I just feel like he could be a good fit on that Chiefs defense. I see it. They could always use some help on the D line, and to get a guy from a smaller school to a big market team, one of the better teams in the league. I feel like that's just good for him and will really help boost their defense in the next few years. That's about all I got for my mock draft.
Yeah. And I agree with that. One thing I was wondering, I've heard that NFL GMs project Travis Hunter as a corner, so more, and I don't think he'll play both sides. So the Panthers pick, I could see him playing corner for the Panthers. But other than that, I agree with everything. It's
I see
similar to
what
mine.
I see in for Travis Hunter. I feel like predominantly he's going to be a corner in the league, but I feel like depending on the team that drafts him, they might have some sets for him. He's not going to play every snap in the NFL, but he will play some receiver. But he's primarily going to be a corner, as you said. GMs are thinking.
Yeah, 100%. All right, and I think that's all for today's episode of Gridiron Across the U.S. A little bit of an apologies because I have midterms this week, so it's a lot going on. This obviously wasn't our best episode, but expect the quality to ramp up as we go out a little bit. This was obviously not the best, but we're still getting those episodes out for you guys. So yeah.
That's about all I got too. We'll see you on Thursday for our preview of Week 16.